Hello, my name is Virginia Hammond and I'm a second-year architecture student. Welcome to Home, Part 4. Today we are in the third floor studio space of the FAY Design School of Architecture and Design, and we are going to teach you how to draw plans, sections, and elevations. Once you have sketched out an idea for an object or a structure or a space, and you have developed it into a model, it's now time to put your ideas down on paper in a formal way so your vision can be properly understood to all. We accomplish this with a series of two-dimensional drawings: the plan, the elevation, and the section. If you have been following along with our Reimagine Home and Garden project, you will recognize our examples from prior episodes where we sketched design ideas at the Faye and Gus Jones home. Since then, we have demonstrated making models of our ideas from everyday materials around your home. Now we will use these same examples to make two-dimensional drawings that are a vital part of how we communicate. The drawing types we use are both 2D and 3D, and each have their values. A 2D projection is a flat drawing that shows dimension in the X and Y direction, and could be a plan, section, or elevation. 3D projections can be utilized for site drawings and diagramming. If you saw our Home Part 2 video, you saw how we use 3D drawings to diagram and analyze the space we are designing.
Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm a third-year architecture student here at the FAY Jones School of Architecture and Design. I'm going to be walking you through how to start thinking about making sections, plans, and elevations. So the first drawing type we're going to discuss in depth is the section. And in order to discuss section, I'm going to be referencing this model. Now, if you've watched the other parts of these home series of videos, including the brainstorming session and the modeling session, you're going to be familiar with this. The best way to think about cutting a section is to think about slicing a building in half. Now that's called a longitudinal section, and really what that would mean is that you're cutting through the long part of the building, the longest side. And what a section would be then is if this were cut in half, you would take one part away, and then what you'd be left with is basically a slice of your building. So then the section is taking that one slice, and then we look at that slice head on. So then what we have is a 2D drawing, which is just a representation of the walls and spaces that you're cutting through from the side. Now, when you're cutting a section, what you want to think about is cutting through the greatest number of most important spaces as efficiently as you can. So in this model, I would cut through the middle of it because I'm cutting through my most important features in my design. One of the very helpful things about a section drawing is its representation of different variations in material thickness. So when you're cutting a section, you're taking into account the thicknesses of your walls, the thicknesses of your openings, your windows, the thicknesses of your ceilings and floors. Now we're going to talk how to make a plan. So if a section is a cut through the building vertically, a plan is very much the same idea, just flipping that in a different direction. A plan is a cut horizontally. If a section is a cut down, a plan is a cut across. So what we're doing, if I were to make a plan on this model, I would make a cut 4 feet above the ground, through my walls, through my doorways, through all my openings, and then we'd be looking directly down on the lines left over from that cut. The idea of cutting at 4 feet is that it is high enough that we can cut through our windows, our doorways, and all those important aspects of a building's elements, while also being able to look down at furniture and things like that. What this allows us to do is get a very complete idea of how a space is made up, almost like a map. You would cut, hopefully, only one plan if you had a one-floor building. For every additional floor you have another plan. The final drawing that you would use would be an elevation. We have plans and sections, which are cut drawings. An elevation is very similar to a section, but you're not cutting through anything. So the idea of an elevation is that you would be looking at a building from the outside directly on from any different face. So a 2D representation of this is an elevation. Same thing from this side and this side. You're not cutting through anything, but you're getting a good idea of what facades and the building looks like from the outside. Elevations are not exclusive to exterior views though. If you have an interior view that you find very important, you can do a drawing very similarly. It's still a flat 2D representation, but from the inside looking at a very important wall in your design that maybe has windows, furniture, door frames, things that you've deemed important.
I'm Nate. I'm a third-year architecture student at the FAY School of Architecture and Design. And I'm going to be talking about some of the things that Virginia and Cameron already covered in this video. We're going to be sketching freehand a plan and an elevation on this gridded paper that you see here. And I will be kind of expanding on some of the concepts with some different colored Sharpies to really get a really good idea of some of the more specific things in a plan and elevation for y'all. So to start, I'm going to want to orient my plan so that I can draw the elevation that I want to do in line above it. So when I'm drawing my plan, and I'll show this, we can draw some construction lines to just carry it through and to carry the dimensions up to the top. I made this model in a 1/4 inch equals a foot scale. I have my dimensions over here on the side. So let's go ahead and just follow those gridded lines. We're going to pretend like we're cutting through this guardrail here as well as the house itself. So we have this corner highlighted here. So if we want, we can go ahead and draw in this thickness. It would be 1 foot, and these little grid lines are little 1/4 inch spaces for 1 foot. All right, so then we have this little 10-foot gap to the first wall, and then that's gonna go all the way to the top to meet this 30-foot edge. And what you might wanna do is just go in here with a lighter pen, get a construction line across here, and that's just a term you can use to maybe have some loose, thinner lines in your drawing that you use as a base for maybe a really consistent dimension that you have. All right, so now that we got the two sections that are being cut through, we can go in with a thinner pen if we want to add some more details. So one detail that I would really want to add from this model is this little landscape idea that I've implemented, and also this extended roof out. So if we want to start first at the extended roof, that covers about, would it be like 8.5 feet. Roof planes and awnings are really commonly portrayed as dotted lines in plan drawings. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is just do a dotted line out to where that roof extends. So we have this here. All right, and then the other thing is the landscape. So I have this green Sharpie here that I can come in and just add some details. So you can see that with this thicker Sharpie, I've highlighted the planes that are being cut through. And then with the thinner one, I'm really highlighting things that are just details that I want to include. So we can just go in and you could do some cross-hatching here, or you could even just go in and kind of draw some squiggly lines. When you're drawing the details, that's also a good opportunity if you wanted to make some changes. So let's say I really want to add a walkway through here. I can just come in with a thin pen since it's not something that's going to get cut through. And we can just sketch in something really quickly. Another good opportunity in plan is, like I said earlier, to show some of these details like landscape. So you'll usually see something bigger like a site plan where you see the house from a bird's eye view, and in that situation, maybe you would just portray the whole house and just draw the roof details and all the details of planes that you want to see. So I could come in here and, for instance, I could draw the driveway that comes out. I could draw some of the surrounding trees. Maybe I want to come in and just highlight these. Another thing you'll notice about this model is that it definitely doesn't portray the rest of the house. Yeah, so what I'm doing here is I'm extending the rest of the house. I'm showing maybe the parts of the house that I didn't include in my model. You could add some more details such as maybe these vertical elements of the railing. So you kind of go through here and you can do a lot of things with the rest of the space and maybe even incorporate some other design interventions that you just want to try without building a model. So now we're going to go into an elevation and you will see really the benefit of doing this plan first and using construction lines, how much easier it'll make this elevation for us. So I'm just going to shift my paper. So like I said, with the plan here, you have this vertical view of the second floor of this house. And then we're going to sketch this elevation of the same side. So we can go in here with a thin pen or pencil. So let's establish the ground line is going to be the darkest line in the elevation, or the cut line where you're cutting through the ground to face the building. So let's go ahead and establish that point right about here. And much like I mentioned in plan, elevation gives you a good chance to extend past your model constraints. So at the Faye Jones house, there's really steep inclines on either side that you can portray in this drawing. So say your house extends far past the constraints in the model, and then up here, it flattens out for another house. Down here, the Faye Jones house drops off, and there's another open lot. This also gives you a chance to draw in some landscape as well. So you could draw in some trees. So going into the elevation here, we'll use a thin pen first. We have these dimensions already of, say, the spacing of the wall from here to here, and also the spacing of the railing from the house and the extension of the roof. So all we need to know right now is the height up to the porch and then the height to the roof. So this will be 8 feet with a foot thickness and then 8 more feet with the wall. And then the roof extends 3 feet up at that peak. So now we have these lines that establish some of the stronger horizontal elements in our plan. So we can go ahead and just extend those straight out. The railing goes all the way out from both sides of the model. The house extends to that wall, and then the roof here. And then maybe to draw that roof extension, you just kind of lighten your hand and its weight on the paper to kind of show that that's maybe not as close to your point of view as, say, this railing. Maybe you come in and go over it multiple times to create a really bold face for that element. So here you have the construction lines extended up, and we're taking advantage of those to just really quickly draw this elevation. So now that that's out of the way, you can see I've glued this little scale figure in there. You could come in and say that scale figure, I want to be 6 feet tall. You can come in with a ruler. You can add a little 6-foot person there. You can add some more extensions like I did with the plan. So you could extend and get the true reality of this part of the house. You could extend the roof as far back as it goes in reality. And then in elevation, you also have some really good opportunities to include shadow. So this overhang porch creates a lot of shadow on the first floor. So I can come in. So then that gives this 2D drawing some real depth, and maybe that's not something that you're used to, but it's really, as you can see here, it's not the hardest thing to include some shadow in these 2D drawings. So you've gotten a pretty good summary of some section, elevation, and plan techniques, and now really you just know how to quickly sketch some of these ideas, and hopefully you can see how I've oriented these to kind of really benefit one another, and see how the two play off each other and give you some more opportunities that maybe you didn't have enough material for in the model, or just didn't want to bother with modeling. So hopefully you guys can really experiment with some of these plan sketching and elevation ideas.
For the Reimagine Home and Garden project, we sketched design ideas at the Faye and Gus Jones home. Here's an example from that home from a second-year interior design studio where they studied mid-century modern homes as noteworthy examples. This is something you can do too, to look at what you like and draw it to better understand what that designer was exploring in their ideas. We often call this precedent study. Here we have a few more examples that are from our library's Arkansas Architectural Archives Special Collections, which includes example of a section blueprint for the original part of Walker, the building we are in now. Also, a few hand-drawn plan examples by architect Faye Jones. Notice how Faye illustrated the details of doors, windows, and the rock fireplace. For the side elevation view of Thorncrown Chapel, notice how the landscape is included since that was an important part of the overall design vision. Another helpful detail is scale figures to illustrate how scale impacts the building. Thanks for joining us for Home Episode 4, How to Draw Floor Plans, Sections, and Elevations. These drawings can both be very specific and scaled, or simply a part of your design process sketching. As you become more confident in your drawing, these will become very powerful ways to visualize your ideas.